whether you're doing an independent adoption or an agency adoption, some sort of post-adoption visits, reports are going to be needed. Agencies will have maybe their own policies about how many of those need to be done. A lot of agencies do 2 or 3. The state may have regulations on how many need to be done. In the state we're in, it's just 1. What is the post-adoption report like for you? For me, I'm going in to make sure bonding's happening, make sure there's no abuse happening, make sure child is being taken care of, those kind of things. But again, like the home study, I imagine it can be somewhat nerve-wracking to go through that.
I have a funny story about this. So one of our sons has some special needs and spent 7 months in the NICU and had a kind of a traumatic adoption experience with him. There was a lot going on with his medical needs, and they were scary issues. And our caseworker, this was through an agency, our caseworker came to do the post-placement, and she was asking questions, and she said, "Oh, this is my favorite part. Tell me how you're bonding with the child." And I burst into tears. Aww. And I said, "He's in the hospital. He lives there, and I'm struggling, and this is really hard." And she was kind of like, didn't know what to say. She just kind of went white.
Did she not know?
She did, but she just didn't. She was expecting me just to gush.
Yeah, I mean, you're not used to those kind of situations sometimes.
She was expecting me to gush and say, "He's perfect and beautiful," and I'm just like, we're just this happy family. And at the time, it was really stressful. And he was living in a hospital, and we didn't know if he was going to live or die. And of course, we adore him and love him. But it was a difficult emotional time for our family. And she wasn't expecting that, and I kind of wasn't expecting it, and got a little bit embarrassed, like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to say that. I'm supposed to just smile and nod and say everything's perfect." But I think the real thing is it's good to be honest and just say, this is what's going on, and you adore your children and love them, and it will be okay. But don't stress out so much about the post-placement.
You can look at the post-placement as a check-off. Like, we have to do this so that the judge, will say that, yes, we can adopt this child, we can finalize this adoption, right? But if you can look at, like, as a caseworker, I appreciate when people don't sugarcoat things and they say this is difficult, because most of the things aren't going to trigger some kind of like, okay, well, I'm stopping this adoption, What I want to do is to help the family to cope with what's going on, and if it is difficult, then I want to help them, and it's not to remove them. I mean, the removal is the last thing
it really is.
You want to do.
I think that was a fear, though, like going through adoption for the first time with an agency. You don't know what to expect, and they tell you they're going to come, and you have to have their shot record, and you have to have, I'm just like, oh, what if I do something wrong and they take my baby away? So I kind of did sugarcoat things because I was so scared. And the second time I'm like, oh yeah, life is great, it's easy going. It wasn't as big of a deal, but the first time I was really nervous.
And even on your particular situation, if you felt like you had a post-placement visit with this social worker that didn't go quite well, I think you could ask for a follow-up, and I don't think there's any problems. And again, we see 1, 2, and 3 post-placement visits, and you might see the first one, they're like, everything's going great. Second one, things are not going very well because her child's in the hospital. Third one is the child's out of the hospital and everything's going great. And we've seen those post-placement home studies done, a week or 2 before the finalization. So, and the judges, again, are very happy to see that things are just normal. They're looking for weird things that are saying that this child shouldn't be in this home, and that's not going to be your situation.
It's not very common. I think, in our state, the bare minimum legal requirement is that one visit, one report. It even just says one report. So the report is how many visits you need. And that's what I tell people. They ask me, how much do you charge and how many do you have to do? And I say, well, this is how much I charge for the first one, and this is how much I charge for the second one. We may need to do the second one. You may want me to do the second one. Or I may feel like we need to meet again, and if we don't need to, then we don't need to.
But it's not for the purpose of deciding to take the child away. It's for the idea of just getting a better and a more accurate picture for the court as a whole.
And get you the resources that you need if you need some resources. If you need counseling, if you need more education on how to bond to a child that isn't yours biologically, XYZ, if you need more support with special needs, whatever it is, that's what it's really meant to be.
I think we tend to take these checks and balances a little bit personally as
Yes,
adoptive families. And really what they're about is the safety of the children. Children are being placed in homes. We want checks and balances for that. We want to make sure that those homes are good fits for them. We want to make sure that they're safe after they've been placed in that home. I mean, I think as a society, we all want that. We all want children to be placed in loving, safe homes. And so if we can take that perspective and realize that it's really not personal, it's really about the well-being of this child, and to not worry so much about they're judging me and they're gonna just,
And it's not necessarily in the best interest to remove a child. And most caseworkers, if you are having struggle, they're just gonna help you work through it, because it is in the best interest to have that child to be in as few placements as possible.
And they can remove the child, but there is an appeal process that the parents can go through. So it's not something the agency's looking to do anyway either. It's just really not something you ever see very often.
Yeah.